put something together that is going to be an evergreen policy. And so you have this, one step up with policy. How do we display and curate information for our residents? And so you wanted to look at, the books that our storytellers are choosing to read, or the art pieces that are chosen to be displayed throughout the library. You want to talk about how we display information on topics and how we display information on cultural and heritage and celebratory months and weeks and days and everything like that. So I think we want to have that meta policy first, and that's going to be a lot of understanding how do we ideate the idea, who gets to contribute to the repository of cultures and celebrations and topics that we choose to highlight. We want to talk about how we go through an approval process of where and when and for how long each of those displays go up. We want to create a transparent process so that you know when you want to bring an idea to the table, or maybe you want to expand on an idea, or maybe you want to bring up some concerns or criticisms you have, you know where to go and who to talk to. We have professional librarians that deserve professional purview to operate with a level of independence in portions of their job. And we don't want them to have to rebuff every single concern that comes in. So we want to write in the policy their purview, their professionalism, and their choices on how and what they display in certain areas. Then we'll communicate that through a schedule or through a group listing. We're sort of going from an abundance mindset here. We have a lot of places to display a lot of messages and information in the library. Let's say yes to a lot of them. And I think that's what's going to help. And so that's why we have to sort of step back and say, let's go one step further. We had a lot of focus on cultural heritage displays, specifically in the children's library. And it's like, oh, well, if we try to micromanage that without considering all of this, I think we're going to stay doing interviews with two news. And we want to get back to a point where we can just operate and celebrate our residents and the diversity and the attributes that make this a wonderful community. So going a little bit bigger, but 100% a part of that is how we can return to delivering cultural and heritage displays as part of the Orem Public Library's offerings.
Prior to any sort of policy in place, like the displays were, as you mentioned, the purview of the librarians here, and you're saying that you want a policy that will build in some freedoms for them.
With a calendar, with a location, or with a equal representation of appropriate topics, and so that way when we go, I think a lot of it was, we would go to a report and say, well, what did you display? What did you put out? And we would say, I don't really know. Now we'll have a calendar, we'll have a matrix to say, here's our book list, here's our groups, here's our film screenings, here's our cultural displays, so we can show the totality of what we're doing. It's going to be a stronger message and is an exciting one. Right? There are so many resources here that we use, that our professional librarians use to communicate that message. We want to highlight that and put them in a defensible position. We want to be able to clearly communicate to our residents what's happening, what they can anticipate. We've got a number of highly interactive portions of this future display policy to say, let's create space for a resident, or a library advisory commission member, or a city council member, or city staff, or you can come back and say, can I have a portion of the display? And we'd love to say, yeah, this is your display for this week. Tell us what 16 books represent you. And and now we'll have a hybrid so we can say, look, this is the Orem Public Library's message, and this is a resident's message. Or we can further multiply our staff picks area. Say, look, this isn't the Orem Public Library's display. This is this librarian's personal and impassioned message of what they want to talk about. So we think just by retooling and having a chance to step back, we're going to come away with something far better than what had been maybe a singular message or a singular point of expression.
Yeah. This is a very tricky path to walk, isn't it? Because you want to be able to provide freedom, but also you want to be able to have some limits. I mean, this process has probably been interesting at the very least for you guys.
Yeah, and that would maybe be my rebuttal. The policy surrounding how we choose which sports get to play on which fields and which groups those sports represent, and how you balance that with majority sports and minority sports, meaning the number of kids that play soccer is much larger than the kids that play lacrosse or Quidditch. It requires a policy that is nuanced, and it requires bringing stakeholders to the table. And I think this, when you consider a director position, this was the experience that our acting city manager, Bren, was interested in doing. It's a policy or a process of developing a policy that we have experience here in Orem. As we worked through a swim team that folded and we had to bring a new swim team in last year as we had to reallocate how we chose to do our fields for sports just 9 months ago. We showed that a process of bringing stakeholders in, considering staff needs, and building it so it's repeatable is the best path forward. Now, our book's different, our display's different, of course, and that's why we have a different set of experts in our staff weighing in on this one. But I think it's that process that we're really excited about. We move slow, methodically, we consider the totality of what we're doing, and we invite stakeholders within the city, input from our library advisory commission, from city council members, from city staff, from city management, and outside of our city, advocates like the Utah Library Association, or, other citizen groups that feel strongly about, information and displays and everything like that. We think if we go slow, we invite them in, we show them what we're doing, and we build a policy that they can anticipate what's coming next, they're going to see that we're trying to be transparent and tricky. We're gonna bat 1,000%. No, and we're okay with that. We know that there will be some push and pull, but that's built into the policy too. Great. 2023, we had these displays, we had these messages, we had these materials. How can we shape 2024 to be better? So we build in feedback, we build in different purview. We have, a draft system for our librarians to get to pick which displays they get to do. Maybe it becomes something where they can try to do that. Even now we're learning, what might have been appropriate to do a Native American display now probably needs to be 8 different groups that celebrate the 8 different, indigenous tribes of Utah. So we're going to be better. We went from 1 week to 8 weeks, or 8, something that is more specific and responsive to a very changing and rapidly learning environment. And so the policy is tricky. It's designed to be tricky because it's a tricky situation. If we have a simple policy, no displays, or librarians can do whatever they want, I think we get to some tough situations. I think by having a nuanced and thorough policy, we're going to come away feeling a lot better, and something that we can use for years to come. You can see where we're going.
You've been getting input from the city council on the policy as it's been working through, right?
The process of the policy, and I think that's what's most important. We presented informally 2 weeks ago at city council to say, look, this is how we want to move forward. And we talked about.
So you haven't had any direct input from members of the council about the actual policy, right? Like where
the process of who gets to put which books on which shelves where.
So you're saying the city council hasn't had a say?
Yeah, what we get to instead collaborate on is how do we go through a calendar? How do we say yes to more residents? How do we empower our professional librarians to feel confident in curating and designing and doing what they're doing?
Right. All right. So just so I'm clear, so the city council has had a say on the sort of the process.
The policy, yeah.
And what about the nuts and bolts of the policy? Has the city council had a say on that?
That's next.
Okay.
That's next, and that's for each. And we will invite feedback from truthfully from them, but also from Parents United, Citizens United. Someone had reached out about them getting to collaborate. Great, we'd love to hear what they have to say. We'd love to hear from the ULA. We'd love to hear. The first iteration will go out to our most senior librarian staff and our library advisory commission for them to review the nuts and bolts. And then we have, as part of the policy, a formal way to ideate which topics we hit where and when, and with what tools that we have. What goes on the cultural heritage display table that we'll have. What is best served through a curated book list online? What is best served through a cultural celebration night out on the Ashton stage as part of Library Hall? And so that's where there will be lots of input, but we have over 4,000 chances to display and provide information a year. That's a lot of yeses, and that's where we're going to approach it from. So if you bring a topic of people, something that you want to highlight, we're going to say yes. Let's get it in the right spot.
All right, let's get to brass tacks.
Let's do it.
LGBTQ issues. Is there a policy? What's the policy say about that? And I know you haven't revealed it, but
Yeah.
I mean, is that going to be allowed in the library? Will it be allowed in the children's section? What's sort of the
Brass tacks, yeah, that's the $1 million question, right? We will have a cultural heritage display table, and given that Pride Month is a month celebrated in Utah, that seems very appropriate to have highlighted as part of our cultural and heritage celebration displays.
Will it be prominently displayed in the library?
Yeah, the cultural and heritage display will be prominently displayed in the library, and that's the one that we'll get a chance to curate and go through, and we're not gonna put it on a shelf somewhere.
Okay.
But yes, we will have a glad to have a return to a display policy that includes LGBTQ at our cultural heritage displays.
And that's gonna be in, somewhere in the library over here somewhere, or will you be able to show me where,
No,
or do you know yet?
not officially yet, but what we're, I'd say this is the less polished answer, so edit as you need, but essentially what we'll have the opportunity to do is identify a few of our major displays. Obviously, as you look behind us, you have books that are on top of the stack and cover out, we would consider those main displays. It is a way of displaying information. Those will be the more minor things, or the ones that will continue to allow part-time staff to just choose while they're filing books. But we think that we'll have a chance to do some of these, staff picks and resident picks, a cultural and heritage, a topical display, current events and issues, in and around Orem or Utah County. We talked a lot, like, there's a lot of talk about the state flag right now. It'd be really fun to do something on that, so a topical one. Those ones will be sort of permanent and prominent at the location. The topic will change, but again, easy to anticipate. This is where cultural and heritage goes, this is where topical goes, this is where staff picks goes, and those will stay consistent, so it's easy to navigate.
I foresee like potential issues, let's say with your resident head, right? Maybe they come here and say, look, I believe that this theory about one of the political parties is true. I believe that, I believe in this kind of religion, or I believe in no religion. Maybe I'm an atheist. How do you deal? Those are going to be issues that are going to be thorny for you. How do you navigate that without ending up in court?
Yeah. So you've mentioned, libraries, the First Amendment, protecting free speech, and I think one of the most exciting parts of what we're doing with the policy is it allows the reader and the author or the book to do the messaging. There's the URL right there. And so, given that we don't want to be in, a role of censorship on political or religious or any of these other protected classes, and having us as administration choose, what a pitfall, right? That doesn't work. And so instead, I think we focus on what the Orem Public Library messaging is. We represent this building and the resources and the books, the resources that purchase these books, the staffing. And so what is the third person messaging of Orem Public Library? And I think if you find a message that says, our Orem neighbors are reading about this topic, this political party, this religion, we are not making a statement. And I think that's what's going to be most consistent and most exciting moving forward. We can say, we trust our residents, we trust our readers to come to those decisions. And we are simply acknowledging that some of our neighbors are reading about a particular topic. I think if we were to get into a call to action, read about this book, make sure you vote red, vote blue this November, that becomes problematic. And so that's where we avoid call to actions beyond pick up a book and read and decide for yourself.
So there's been a big debate about whether or not the city council was behind the ban or not, right?
Yeah.
How do you go about avoiding those same accusations, true or not, while you put together this policy?
Yeah, great question. And again, something that we have experience in, how do you invite First Amendment protections and also the will of the people and democracy? And if it feels like those two ideas are clashing, I have some really passionate opinions on the way to navigate that. And I think it's been fun for me to see our council member, who is the liaison to the Library Advisory Commission, Renee Miller. She's been open and forthright in my experience, and so it's been easy for me to anticipate what to do and how to have those discussions in front of our Library Advisory Commission, or how to have the conversations that are nuts and bolts based, the process of policy, make sure that we stay to process of policy and not getting into dictating something about which book we do or don't allow or highlight or something like that. And so I think I'm going to have to earn the trust of our staff and residents. We had a previous former 10-year library director retired, so it's going to be a natural process to earn that. But I think by showing the policy, having it written, showing them the annual plan that for the displays that rotate, they'll be able to see and anticipate that. And people just want to see the process. And so when they see it, they can understand it, they can form those conclusions. And I'm confident that transparency, trust to our librarians, building that in, explicitly permitting cultural and heritage celebration, those are going to go a long way to earn that. And then for our council to earn and continue to earn their trust, they want to see that we're acting the plan, that we're acting, for all of our Orem residents. And so by showing them the same thing, I think we'll be able to see that. ULA and other organizations, they'll be able to see what we're doing. And so rather than me ask them to trust me or, promise that we're doing it, we'll just show the process, and I think that will win out long term.
Do During this process, have you had the mayor reach out to you, other members of the council, and say, look, this is what I want to see?
In terms of like the actual content of the
Yes.
displays? No. And
Policy.
No, on policy, yeah, hey, we want something clear, we want something easy to
Right, but are
communicate.
they saying, look, here, I'm uncomfortable with this. I want you to make sure that you keep that in mind as you're producing the policy.
I think what is great is to create avenues for appropriate expression. If a council member wants to use the dais to talk about what they find appropriate and inappropriate, we can recognize that that is part of their governance and empower them to do so. And I think as long as we have appropriate boundaries to say, you use your lane and your vote given responsibilities to talk about that, we support that, respect that. We're gonna get to the business of policy now and go from there. I'm very comfortable with that. I don't think it's something where, you know, if there was undue pressure like maybe you're alluding to, or
Right, that's
a
what I'm
soft-
asking.
a soft
Have you
directive.
had direct or indirect pressure or suggestions from members of the council
I think
regarding how the policy is gonna look?
you've seen the same city council meetings that I have. We know how certain members feel and we empower them to feel and express that there. I have not felt that there's been anything inappropriate behind the scenes to force me to have to do something that we're not like, or just saying, hey, the policy's gonna do this, but then actually it does that. We don't feel that pressure. We feel, again, acknowledge that they are voted on, they have the right to do that there, and then to say, respect what the staff need to accomplish here. And again, by talking shop, by talking policy and predictability and transparency, I think that's going to give our city council members what they need to be able to operate confidently and reach out and talk with their constituents.
Do you have any questions?
Kind of backtracking a little bit, I remember that disclaimer before some shows, the views expressed in the show do not necessarily reflect Channel 2 News.
Yeah.
Is that what's kind of I'm getting from these displays with, from your residents?
Yeah, and that's, you talk to library, especially you talk to our long-term library professionals in some of our first meetings, that was, we don't want to be censored, and obviously censorship typically is about what books are or not on the shelves, not necessarily displays, but I think you have a lot of people that say it's okay to present information that is difficult or not widely accepted or presents challenging viewpoints. I think as long as we acknowledge that the Orem Public Library in Orem City is not staking a position in that, we're trusting our residents, our readers, and the authors who, that's the author's job to convince them of that. So we feel that disclaimer is inherent in a library and inherent in the First Amendment protections of accessing material and making a decision for yourself.
We've talked to some people who are current and former librarians who say that morale here at the library is at an all-time low.
Yeah.
Did you find that to be the case? If so, or if not, how do you deal with those kinds of issues?
If you don't feel empowered and trusted to do your job, it's really hard to want to come into work. If you feel you're going to be second guessed, and I have immense respect for our previous director, and so as we talk about some tough morale, I don't think it's a reflection on previous leadership. She was very good at what she did, and she taught me a ton by being peers here the last 2 years. Instead, though, I think when you have statements from ULA or you feel you have a professional pull and a civic responsibility, that naturally is going to do that. That's why building a policy has been the imminent priority and something that we've spent a lot of time doing. We said we wanted to be thorough, we said we wanted to do all that, but we also wanted to do it quick. We've been here for 4.5, 5 weeks now, and that's a long time, but also to show tangible steps, to take that to the city council meeting 2 weeks ago and our library advisory commission last week. I'm hopeful that our staff are seeing that we want to respond and that we're going to do so. And we've been able to say, hey, cultural and heritage displays are a part of that, as is building in your professional purview, so you know which breeds to stick between or where to build the displays. I think once we can address what to do and where to do it, and that your administration has your back in operating within those bounds, I think it's going to be a lot more fun. We also have some really cool stuff unrelated to displays and unrelated to some of the most challenging topics from the last couple of years that our division managers, experts in the library field, have brought up that we're really excited to start on. And that, going back to my recreation experience, those are the ones that I'm thinking, this is great. More adults entering our library and getting a library card in 2023. More people accessing those, bringing our services out of the physical library and going to people that have barriers to participation because of hours of operation or transportation. Those are the things that get me really excited. So not only are we going to get some of these things right, we've got some really great paths forward that we're gonna chart together and bring library services to our residents.
You got anything else? What's the last book you read?
I am reading Song of the Wild Goat right now, recommendation from one of our librarians.
There you go.
And so,
You're already getting caught up on this job.
a true story. Are you a big reader, medium reader?
I'll be honest with you, I'm not a big reader.
Yeah, I'm a medium reader. But you know, and I had a liberal arts degree. My undergrad was in humanities, and I thought it was reasonably well read. And I kind of narrowed, basically every staff meeting, what do you read, what do you like, and I go like 10% of my thought, even though the author of the title. It made me realize it's pretty one-dimensional. Where it's like, oh, I do a lot of podcasts, I do a lot of audiobooks, I do a lot of biographies, and then like I actually don't know the rest of the fiction book.
Yeah.
And so it's been humbling. So yeah,
I'll bet, man, yeah. Okay, so I think what we'll do is we'll do kind of just a walk and talk kind of, or just like first B-roll. What do you think? You wanna do something over here? At the front entrance? Sure. Well, when they told you you were gonna be in charge of libraries, I mean, that's not, wasn't on your resume.
that wasn't on my radar.
I mean, were you like,
Oh,
Okay, I mean,
it's because a lot of people lump together Parks and Rec. And think about the crews. Think about the work style, the work hours of a parks, mowing, maintenance, irrigation crew, and a rec team. It's night and day different. And so it's been interesting. There are obviously the learning curve has been nuts. And and I've told all of our staff, I am looking forward so many technical aspects of it. I won't pretend to do that. But I also think about like Hartford. But we're all okay with that. You're right. We saw the NBC technology. We know you say Parks and Rec together, like those jobs are wildly different. So in some ways, I'm like, okay, well.
leave that on and it's gonna tell us what
You're slacking on your law books though.
Oh no!
Yeah.
On which ones we have here?
Common law, yeah, you don't have any of those.
See, well, we have there's a form online that you can ask us which ones. It's part of our collection acquisitions, and so
Okay.
as soon if you have the title, the author, the version of that, you put it in, and it brings it right to the collection developer.
Okay.
So please, the Orem Library website, but the submissions come in all the time. That's exactly how they choose what to
Okay.
get next.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.